want to switch focus a little bit and talk about your work with various corporates. Of course, lots of business leaders listening today. How do you entice a company to do business with you? What's your pitch to them?
Well, you know, the thing is, we have a number of the more important clients, companies in the world using our products. So like in just as an example, 3M, Chrysler, Fiat, Rio Tinto, BP is a very, very long list. And a lot of our growth, both in commercial and in government, is concentric circles of people saying, hey, why is it that ABC doesn't work? And in the beginning, in the Intel's play services and DoD and in commercials, like, well, why don't you call that motley company we've heard of with the crazy looking CEO with the 12-year-olds? Because, you know, we've heard that the software works. And you know, enterprise software is kind of a thing where people often struggle to understand what its utility is. We went from use case to use case, basically. Now we have a technical thing in both commercial and government where we believe we're supplying software the way it'll be supplied in 5 years. So in the government context, we said we would supply, instead of one-off systems bespoke, built with literally a million hours of human labor and with a cost of $1 billion, we'll install our software in weeks at a cost. Often we used to go to clients in the government space and say, it'll be 1% of the time, 5% of the cost, pay us when we've installed. Now in the government context, they often can't just pay you afterwards, but in the commercial context, we would say the same thing. In the beginning, we largely built our business around companies that were having a crisis, and the CEO was very frustrated because they couldn't figure out why they couldn't rebuild or do A, B, C, D, why it was gonna have to take 8 months instead of what seemed to be something you could do. And there are very technical issues under those questions. In the commercial space, we have somewhat of a radical view. This is purely technical. This is not how we entice the clients, but our view is that in 5 years, a great number of people are going to buy software the same way they buy every other technical product. They're not going to, like when we're talking here, you didn't install the 15 things into the camera, put it together and decide that your Frankenstein monster would be a great way to do this interview. You bought a finished product. Mm-hmm. Palantir, what makes Palantir Foundry so unique and the way we manage it, Apollo, is that you can buy the whole stack. It'll be installed in a couple of days, and you will not have to have 1,000 products sewn together by a massive IT organization. However, we also believe, and this is totally counterintuitive, but is actually a truism software, that the individual parts of that stack can be sold as modules, each of which is superior to the modules that you could otherwise buy from other companies, because the individual modularity is actually not in contradiction to building the whole stack. They actually reinforce each other. So what's unique technically is in both government and in commercial is the way we actually deliver the software and the speed with which we can deliver it. And in the beginning, in both cases, we didn't even bother with that because it was like, look, you have a crisis, we will solve it. And after that, you can buy our software. And we did, for years and years, we insisted in the commercial space of doing it for free. Why? Of doing the pilot for free. Why? Because people are legitimately skeptical of software. All these software companies seem to have the same jargon on their website. How would you ever tell the difference between one person's jargon and another's? You know, it's like, one of the most interesting things about software is if you're not a software engineer, it's very hard to evaluate the difference between jargon that makes no sense and is like largely a waste of your time and something that actually can help you. And so we solved that by actually installing it. Now we have all these references. When people now call us or want to know, my real answer is like, look, it's very hard to evaluate software. If you're a software engineer, we can explain to you technically. But you could also just call these 5 clients. You know, Palantir, in all modesty, we have the very best client list in the world. And that's despite having me as the front man. They're like, how does that happen? It's like, you know, there's like it's like, so you have like this that's just, you know, the best way to evaluate software is to say, okay, that sounds kind of interesting. Let me talk to someone who's used it. Let me do a pilot and do it on some problem you actually care about, not some esoteric problem. And then see, well, does it work? What are the costs? And, you know, why is the thing I've invested in? And if there's only some part, like we have this great partnerships with IBM and AWS. Another thing to look at is, again, who are their partners? I mean, You know, we have a list, client list. I would say no other company in the world has a client list like ours on the clandestine service company list. And then we have these partners, IBM, AWS. I think those are two of the most notable, most interesting software companies that human history has produced.